So yeah, I'm Ellie. As Dan said, I head up our social media team here at WAGADA Digital. And this means I work with our team to take a strategic view on our clients' social media, what platforms they're using, how we can really post messaging that resonates with their audience, help them with their content strategy to help them stand out from the noise on social media and also their competitors. So that's what we're going to do today, outside the box social media tactics to help your brand stand out. So I'm super excited. We've got lots to get through, so let's get cracking. So I thought it was important to start with getting a bit of a feel for the current social media landscape. So in January 2023, there were 4.72 billion social media users globally. And in the UK, there are 57.1 million. So there is a lot of noise on social media. There are a lot of people that you can be reaching, but a lot going on. In the past in the past years, there's been countless algorithm updates and new features. We're even seeing platforms that aren't typical social media platforms beginning to release features to compete in the social media landscape. So Spotify, for example, have recently released some video clip aspect to their platform, which we'll be talking about a bit more later. There's also been countless app launches. This year, to name a few, we had Lemon 8 at the beginning of the year, which is owned by the same people as TikTok, and it was kind of their version of a bit of a Pinterest, Instagram kind of platform. And then just a couple of months ago now, we had Threads as well, which is owned by Meta, which was designed to compete with Twitter, and we'll be touching on that a bit more later as well. And of course, we can't forget that Musk and Zuckerberg have challenged each other to a fight. These two social media giants, there's just so much going on. And in all seriousness, it can be really hard to know how to break through the noise. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to start by looking at unconventional content creation techniques, and this will include things like how we can harness the power of virality to help achieve success on social media. We'll then go on to tactics like gamification, maximizing on user-generated content, which can be super, super, super powerful on social media. We'll then take a look at how you can leverage emerging platforms and what to do when a new platform comes into the space, before going on to look at how we can use data in our social media to make informed decisions, and then just touching on some paid social advertising techniques as well. Right, let's get straight into it with a question that is likely on many of your minds. How do I go viral? Well, I want to first off say that virality is not always the goal. So going viral is great for reach, it's great for your publicity, it's amazing social proof. But ultimately, when you go viral, you reach a really large group of people who are outside of your target audience, which ultimately they're not interested in what you have to offer and won't convert in the future. So going viral is very, very top of the funnel content, and might not always align with your business goals. So just the next time you think about whether going viral is your goal, just reconsider if that aligns with your business goals, and would your efforts be better placed in creating some really, really valuable content for a much smaller group, but a group that is your target audience and who will ultimately convert. Okay, so when it comes to viral content, there's kind of three themes that we see with successful viral content, and these tactics can be used to help push that content, and hopefully it will go viral. So for content to go viral, it typically has to be either one of these three things, or a mixture of two or three of them, and that is controversial, relatable, or aspirational. So let's delve into them. I'm going to start with controversial. So, I wish I could see all of your faces right now, because I bet there is a lot of disgusted looks out there, and rightly so. This is very, very shocking thing to see on your screen. So this was an ad by Burger King who released a time lapse of their Whopper burger molding over 34 days. And you might immediately think, that is shocking. Why would any food brand want to show their food molding? Who's that messaging going to resonate with? But actually, the ad was designed to showcase the beauty of no artificial preservatives and highlight the brand's commitment to natural ingredients. And it was actually really, really successful in doing just this. So off the back of this this ad, Twitter mentions spiked, sales increased by 14%. And while they took a poll of their audience's feelings, which was like you and me, gross, awful, disgusting, it actually had a great impact on their sales, and it was talked about globally. And this bold move, it really, really helped them cut through the noise, especially against their competitors. So Dan was actually just telling me a story of when he was at uni. They'd have these student open mic nights, and this one guy turned up to his slot with a McDonald's burger still in its wrapping that he had kept in his locker since the very first day of uni. So you can only imagine how long that was there for. And Dan said, he peeled off this wrapper. He was going to eat it in front of the crowd. Obviously, everyone was encouraging it. And when he peeled off the wrapper, there was not a speck of mold. It looked as intact as if he had just bought it that day. So, when Dan saw this ad, obviously he's seen the complete extremes of what it looks like when a burger has been pumped full of salts and preservatives. And actually being able to see that the Whopper burger is natural and will mold will stick in your mind. And I guarantee the next time one of you are faced with the decision between McDonald's and Burger King, that moldy burger image is going to pop into your mind, and it could be the difference between you choosing Burger King over their biggest rival, McDonald's. So yeah, super, super effective ad through being controversial, grabbing people's attention and shocking them. So the next type of content we were going to look at is relatable. And this is Spotify's Wrapped. So Spotify is a music app. You can discover new music, you can make playlists like songs, but every year they released Spotify Wrapped, which basically sums up, your most listened to songs, your favorite band, your most listened to podcasts. And the reason that this performs so well is that it's just so relatable. Almost everyone listens to music. Almost everyone has a favorite band, a favorite singer, and it sparks conversation. So when this is shared on people's stories, you'll see that, and you might have the same favorite band as someone, and it makes you talk about it. It makes you want to post it. And when you see other people's. As well, I know this isn't specifically created on social media, it's created on Spotify, but the reason it works so well is that shareability element. So not only when it's shared to social media does it instantly spark conversation between people, but it's also within Spotify presented as a story kind of format. So it just makes it so easy to just share that onto your social media platform. So in 2017, there were 30 million Spotify users accessing Wrapped, but by 2021, that figure had grown to more than 120 million, which is huge. And really, really importantly, there were nearly 60 million shares of Wrapped stories and cards across social media platforms in 2021. So just that relatable content is the kind of thing that sparks conversation. It makes people want to share it with their friends, share it with their following, because it is just so, so relatable. And then moving on to aspirational. So this is an example of GoPro, who actually encouraged, they ran kind of competitions that encouraged their users, their audience, to post content online of them using the product. So this meant we saw videos of people doing skydives, people riding down mountains on a bike, incredibly aspirational content that is amazing to see through the eyes of the person that's using the product. And this was really successful for a number of reasons. So one, it's super aspirational, both for the people who might have a skydive coming up and might want a way to document it in this incredibly powerful way, but also for those of us who, haven't got skydiving on the bucket list, but we get to experience this amazing thing through these people's eyes, something that we might not do ourselves. And then the next time we do something like go on holiday and go snorkeling, for example, we'll think like, oh, I wish I could document it in that kind of style. Oh, I remember that amazing campaign from GoPro. And then secondly, as well, this is really playing on user-generated content, which we're going to be touching on more later. But this is content posted by the users themselves that the brand could then use. And this is just so powerful because it allows people to see the product or service in action, hear from real users rather than the brand just shouting about it themselves. So this specific campaign by GoPro achieved 130K website visits in 2019. So again, just such a powerful way to stand out from the noise and ultimately drive website traffic and sales. Okay, so I couldn't talk about viral content without touching on guerrilla marketing. And this involves innovative tactics that a brand can use to interact and surprise target audiences with the ultimate goal of promoting brand awareness. But the key here is it's playing on the element of surprise. It's designed to catch audiences in unexpected ways during their regular daily routines. So this is a great example from Maybelline. Just play this quickly for you. Where you can see a mascara wand just wiping the lashes that are attached to public transport. So this was only a few months ago, actually. And you can see this is incredibly shocking. Think of how many thousands of people get the tube every day, get a bus every day, and nothing remarkable happens. And now suddenly they're seeing this kind of thing. And, of course they're going to talk about it. It's going to spark surprise and conversation, and it's going to go viral. This actually was CGI video, so it didn't actually happen in real life. But again, I think that played into why it was so successful is people were like, how on earth did they get away with doing this on the London Underground?
So Ellie, just very quickly, I've had a private question come through, and I'm conscious that we often utilize big brand case studies to showcase the potential of what's going on or what's possible.
Yeah.
And somebody has come through and highlighted that obviously we're talking about larger brands here with much larger budgets and how this could be emulated with a much smaller budget.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure there's going to be some amazing stuff, I know there's some amazing stuff coming with regards to how smaller brands with smaller budgets can utilize certain platforms and tools to achieve this sort of thing.
Yes.
But is there anything that you wanted to talk about at this point on that, and how perhaps if you have a slightly smaller marketing budget or a smaller team, how we can be getting some inspiration from this type of activity and applying it to our own business?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you said, we 100% are going to be going on to some tactics and much smaller scale things. These are just kind of things that we can look up to, but this kind of thing can be achieved through something as simple as a tweet. And we'll look at AI a bit later, which can really open doors for brands to do much more impressive looking things that we haven't before been able to do so easily. So this next example is actually a perfect example of a much smaller scale guerrilla marketing tactic. So this is by Oreo Cookies. It was during the Super Bowl, I believe in 2013, when the power went out. You can just imagine everyone who was planning on watching the Super Bowl on Twitter, endlessly scrolling, looking for updates, looking to see if their friends are still suffering with the power outage too. Maybe they're actually killing time because their plans have now been ruined. And out of nowhere, Oreo Cookies tweet, "Power out, no problem. You can still dunk in the dark." So they are playing on a current event which is happening for people. They're inserting their self into this kind of the conversation that's already happening, into a conversation that isn't even necessarily related to them, but they're making it relevant to their brand. And it was incredibly reactive as well, which again just surprised people. So this is a great example of a much smaller scale kind of content that brands can do to shock and surprise people, and that's being reactive and playing on that relatability. Okay, so another great way to stand out on your social media is to come up with a signature look and make yourself recognizable. So I've just popped this example here, which is Keith Lee. He's a food influencer, so he just goes around trying different food, mostly in America. But you can see he's grabbed my attention because he like zooms into his face and his eyes in every video. And this makes him really, really recognizable and helps him stand out. You know, if I'm scrolling through the feed, you know, people don't stay on a video for more than a few seconds. And if instantly I'm gripped by a change in the scene, or I know that this is his style of video, and I know that I like this style of video, I'm more likely to continue to watch. And this way of standing out is especially good if you're jumping on a trend. So a tactic a lot of brands use on TikTok, for example, is if there is a trend or a trending sound, using this can help boost your reach. But everyone is using that tactic now. So to help yourself stand out in that scenario, having that signature look and feel that your audience can easily identify you in all of the noise is an amazing tactic to use. Another way we can stand out, which I just referenced, is AI. So this is a bit more of a new development. We've seen, the past couple of months, there's been so much change within the AI field. And it's really great for us on social media. So especially with B2Bs, we have clients come to us and they're really struggling with their creative, or if they're a service, you know, they have really limited creative options for them out there, and they're using stock imagery that their competitors are using as well, and that is just not like making them stand out from their competitors whatsoever. So now with the introduction of AI instead of stock imagery, we can really cut through the noise and create images that are ours to use freely and that are completely different from our competitors. So DALL-E 2 and Midjourney, these are both great image generation platforms. This example here on the right is actually one from Midjourney. You can see that someone's plugged in an astronaut riding a horse in a photorealistic style. You know, previously, this would have taken the creative team hours and hours in Photoshop, making iterations, trying to get this to look right. Whereas now you can plug something in and have this image generated for you, which you can then go and use. And of course, you know, AI is still developing. You'll have to make tweaks and all of that. It's not always perfect, but you know, what a great tool that we can use to now stand out from our competition. There's also features in platforms you're probably already using. Canva has loads of AI tools, and as does Photoshop. They've released their generative fill, which means you can select, past the photo you already have, and it can begin to build out the wider picture of the photo. Things like Synthesia for digital avatars. You know, if you or your team aren't that comfortable in front of a camera, you can get a digital avatar to do it now for you. Visla as well, that's a great one where you can turn your words, you know, put in a prompt and turn it into a video where it builds out a storyline. It chooses the right imagery and videos for you, and it can even do an AI voice for you. So some really, really great platforms for you that I would definitely recommend looking into to help you kind of stand out from your competition. And this is actually a example we did for one of our clients, Global Moving Services. They offered tailored solutions for people moving internationally. And when we were building the strategy for them, it was right in the middle of the whole Barbie phenomenon. If you have social media, I almost guarantee that you saw some form of Barbie marketing or someone jump onto the Barbie trend. At the time, every single brand was really, you know, jumping onto this trend, hopping on this viral moment and making it their own within their brand. And that's what we did here. So we just played on the idea of Global Moving Services being able to move Barbie's dream house or your dream house to you. So if you are did want to hear a bit more about how you can utilize AI in your marketing, we actually did a webinar a couple of months ago now on AI. So you can please feel free to scan this and that will take you there. Or of course, as Dan said, we'll be sending this round after and we'll link all of the resources. But just some great things in there to help you consider, how you can increase your efficiencies and use AI within your marketing. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was gamification. And gamification is just the introduction of game-related activities into your marketing strategy. And why this is so good is that it fosters and actually incentivizes engagement from your consumers. It boosts brand loyalty as well because they begin to form a positive association with your brand. So we're going to talk through 3 different ways we can use gamification on our social media. And the first one is through competitions. So this first type of competition is an engagement competition. You've probably seen it before. You might have even entered some yourself. This is the very classic like, share, comment to win. And this is amazing for reaching new people because if people are engaging on your post, it gets boosted to more people. Oftentimes, people are asked to tag their friends, which encourages, they're bringing more people to your brand. Which is amazing, and it encourages engagement. So a competition like this, a competition post like this, garners 64 times more comments and 3.5 times more likes than a regular post, which is unsurprising. So super good for reach. However, you can risk reaching the wrong audience if you're not offering a prize that is really related to your brand. Which can hurt you in the long run. So, I've seen people offer things like Amazon vouchers, for example, and unfortunately, you will get people just looking to win that Amazon voucher. And if they then follow you, that could hurt your engagement rate because ultimately, then they don't care about what you're posting. So it's great for if you need a boost of engagement on your socials, but it's not a sustainable growth strategy to just post competitions.
Ellie, just on that, I've had a private message come through, and funny enough, I was talking about this literally earlier this week. What's your take on brands teaming up with other brands for competitions? So somebody's asked about teaming up with other businesses to do like a like
Collaboration.
with like within a local but more like, if you're aligned with another business that's in the region, or what would your take be on that
Yeah.
in terms of like teaming up rather than just
Oh,
going solo, if you see what I mean?
yeah, 100%. It's actually even better. And I'm actually glad you mentioned that. That's relates to my next example. But it then means there's crossover with your audiences, right? So you're actually getting in front of an audience that's already engaged with a similar kind of thing. So it's
Yeah.
a
If they've got
great,
shared interests,
exactly,
shared lifestyle, all that sort of stuff.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely great idea. Um, and that's exactly what this example here, these people did. It was a cooler brand called Yeti, and they teamed up with Traeger grills, so a shared audience there. But what they did is they ran a user-generated content competition. So as I mentioned, user-generated content is any form of content created by your audience or your users online, rather than the brand itself. And it could be image, video, text, audio. But user-generated content is just so great. Encouraging people to share pictures of them using your product, doing an activity that relates to your campaign, doing something as a result of your service. And you can even, use a hashtag to encourage this. And it really helps to build brand loyalty because people are posting about your brand, they're sharing their experience, and you're engaging with them online. So like I said, Yeti and Traeger Grills, they teamed up for this Instagram photo competition where they asked people to post a picture of their barbecue setup, tagging them both and using the hashtag Yeti X Traeger Barbecue in the caption. So this hashtag brought in more than 1,000 unique social posts, which Yeti and Traeger could then both repurpose on their channels. So, what a great thing to incorporate user-generated content into your competitions, so that you've then got endless, really, really valuable content from real people. So while we're talking about user-generated content, I did want to go into it in a bit more detail. It's not new, but it is so, so important in every field. So your customers are 2.4 times more likely to interact with user-generated content versus brand-created content. Millennials find user-generated content to be 35 times more memorable than that comes from mainstream sources. And UGC-based ads get a 4 times higher click-through rate. And why? Because authenticity sells. If someone sees a brand shouting about their product or their service, saying it's amazing, it's nowhere near as powerful than seeing someone just like you posting about it, shouting about it themselves on social media. So what brands can do and what you can do is find user-generated content creators to help you have a bank of content that is super, super authentic and will help you get conversions. So you can discover these creators yourself. As an example, the hashtag UGC creator on TikTok has 156 million views. So you can, go and have a look. There's people creating content in every niche. Find someone who you like the style of. If they're already posting things in your niche, then you can work with them. However, even better is get yourself to a place where people are talking about your brand and sharing about your brand without you even asking them to. And this can be done through engaging with your community, building relationships online, really building up a rapport where people want to shout about their work with you. So as Dan mentioned at the beginning, we're HubSpot partners. So when we do something like my colleague James has done, an email marketing certification, we want to shout about that. We want our clients and potential clients to know that we're constantly learning with HubSpot. We're striving to hone our craft and be the best we can be. So sharing that we have this certification with HubSpot is something that we want to do. And don't be afraid to use this concept of encouraging user-generated content in your wider marketing strategy. We had a client that was, they offered leadership training courses for business leaders, and everyone who completed one of these got a certificate at the end. So our strategy with that was, okay, when you send that follow-up email after that course, send them their certificate in the perfect dimensions to make it super easily shareable on social media, and encourage them to do it. This is the kind of thing that those business leaders will want to talk about on their social media, and just give them the prompt and make it easy for them. So yeah, user-generated content is a great way to stand out, as it just works as social proof from real people. Okay, so the second type of gamification I wanted to talk about was through apps, and specifically in-app features. So, that could be Instagram story stickers. We've got a LinkedIn poll here. We've got some TikTok stickers. You can turn these into games that help you build a relationship with your audience. Turn it into a this or that. Ask people to caption this photo with a funny response. Really just building that relationship online in a way that other people aren't necessarily doing. And within this, you can also use in-app filters. So this is an example of a filter on TikTok, which is Flappy Birds. It was kind of like a press up challenge. How strong are you to keep up? And it was trending for a while. There's nothing to stop a sports brand, for example, to identify that this is trending, and ask their followers, give them a challenge. How long can you do this challenge, but while wearing our trainers or something like that? And that's also then playing on this idea of harnessing the power of virality as well. So it's yet another way that you can really stand out. So you can use filters that are already trending, or you actually can make your own filters with TikTok Effect House. So within the platform, there's kind of templates that you can use. These are augmented reality filters. So you could, filter through face filters and eye filters and choose something there, lip filters, lipstick filters, that kind of thing.
Ellie, just on this, sorry, this
Yeah.
is more from me because it's interesting because I've had clients before, or brands that I've spoken to about this kind of thing, and it's interesting because there's a bit of a what's the phrase? Split opinion on it maybe in terms of like how you protect your brand identity when you start applying things that aren't some of the graphics, the filters, the effects,
Right.
where do you get that balance right so that you retain your brand
Mm,
and your brand authenticity, your
mm,
your 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 actual brand guidelines?
hmm.
How do you retain that versus the balance of utilizing tools
Yeah.
and effects and things that are in
Yeah.
apps, and where does that begin and
Hmm.
end? If you
That's
see what I
actually
mean.
a really interesting question. I think that with platforms like TikTok, sorry, it's more in kind of the message you're putting out there through the filters or the way you are using it that has to resonate with your brand. But yes, we are on TikTok especially. There are things that aren't specifically in your brand guidelines, even when it comes to putting text on screen, which can help your TikTok SEO, for example. You can't just import your own font. So you're straying slightly from your brand guidelines, and you can have a rule for which font you always use. But yeah, I think it will come down more to the messaging and how exactly you're using the filters and what you're encouraging people to
Yeah,
do.
makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
So on the screen, I just had an example of a brand called Bomb Pop, which is a lollipop, who were using a filter on TikTok. So, not only would this, help them stand out, help form positive connections with the users, but again, it could also be a form of user-generated content. So now I'm getting people who haven't heard of my brand before. They're now engaging with this filter that I've created, and now I've got content that I can use on my channels. And these kind of things spiral. As more people get involved, the more people will follow. So the third type of gamification I wanted to talk to you about was in your wider marketing. And you can use gamification on your website through interactive tools to generate more leads and boost your sales. So even things like a download form, calculators are amazing for B2B. So a tax calculator, a mortgage calculator, even something like a money saving diagram where it kind of gamifies that basic task by showing how much money people are saving with your service. I know these aren't specifically on social media, but if we begin to drive people to these on your website from social media, we're actually being quite strategic about it because we're then taking them further down the funnel towards conversion. So I couldn't talk about competitions without surprising you with a little competition of our own. We're actually going to be choosing someone to win a bottle of WAGADA Digital Gin if they leave a review on our Google business profile for this webinar. So yeah, it would be amazing if you could just scan that QR code. It will take you right there, or of course you can do it afterwards. Um, and yeah, be in for a chance of winning our very own WAGADA Digital Gin.
For those who haven't had our very own Wagga Digital Gin, it is actually gorgeous. It's from the botanicals around our St Albans office.
Hmm.
We haven't yet found we haven't yet set. We need to do a Cheltenham one actually, but
Uh-huh.
we've got a Christmas version, which is what are the main flavors in that, Ellie? It's like
Berry, it's red.
berries and it's red. But the our what's the phrase? Our flagship gin is kind of a grapefruity. It's gorgeous actually. It's really nice. It goes down too easily.
Yeah,
But
we're biased, but it is good.
well, no, but I tell you what, I've got to say, first time I tried that, yeah, it's artisan. Yeah, it's very nice.
Perfect. So, at the beginning, I mentioned how much change there has been in social media in the past few months, in the past few years. So it can be really hard to know exactly what you should do when a new platform comes onto the scene. And the number one thing to consider when considering using a new social media platform is your audience. Do not go on to a platform for your sake of it. If your audience aren't there, you could be posting really valuable content, but ultimately you're reaching the wrong people, and they're not going to convert, and therefore you're wasting your time. So I'm going to run through a few examples of interesting new platforms, and then give some advice on what exactly you should do if you do want to try out a new social media platform. So Threads launched a couple of months ago now. It's a platform owned by Meta, but as I said, it's a direct competition with Twitter in a Twitter style feed. this is a really interesting example. 10 million people signed up in the first 7 hours, which is huge. And in fact, on its best day, July 7th, Threads had 49 million daily active users. However, within just a week, that was down to 23.6 million active users. So that's like dropped by half. And it just shows how people potentially all jumped onto this new shiny platform, but then later discovered that their audience weren't there or it wasn't quite right. And I think this is the reason this is such an interesting platform, and the reason that this might have happened is because you can only access Threads through having an Instagram profile. So when people moved over to Instagram, that it was automatically connected to Threads. Sorry, it was automatically connected to the people that they followed on Instagram, and the kind of people I follow on Instagram, Instagram is a very image focused, aesthetic, visual platform. So if I follow a hairstylist, for example, the content I'm expecting to see is Instagram reels of hair transforming, really aspirational photos. And then if I followed them on Threads, they might be posting 5 tips in a more text kind of format, which isn't necessarily the reason I followed them. So a super interesting case study, and it will be really interesting to see how this continues to develop. And there are some brands who are doing really well on there at the moment. So on the left here, we've got Marvel Entertainment, which has 4.5 million followers. On Twitter, they would just repurpose other content. However, on Threads, they're adopting a much more personalized and human approach, posting things like heartfelt scenes from comics, clips of fans at comic conventions, behind the scenes content. On the right is Star Wars. They use a very dry and sarcastic tone of voice while engaging with their following, which their followers really, really enjoy. So if something like sharing memes and being a bit more casual is something that fits in with your brand, then maybe give Threads a try and see what's out there. Next interesting case study is Spotify. So as I said, they are now directly competing with TikTok because people are spending so much time discovering new music on TikTok that they're spending less time on Spotify. And that's because artists are releasing music on TikTok now. People use music to help boost their posts. So they've had to come out with a clips feature, which allows artists to add 30-second video clips to their profiles and their album pages, and also a canvas feature that lets artists add a short 3 to 8-second looping visual to their tracks in order to encourage people to spend more time on the platform. And I can now discover a genre and scroll through and see short clips just as I would on TikTok. Another really important new feature is video for podcasts. If you've got TikTok, I'm sure you've seen how successful clips of people's podcasts do on how successful they are on TikTok. They perform really, really well. Spotify has identified this, and they now allow you to upload videos, your whole video recording alongside your podcast. So if you've got a podcast, I would definitely recommend looking into that and seeing what more value you can provide your audience on Spotify. Okay, so what can you do when starting on a new platform? Number one, don't compromise on quality by spreading yourself too thin. We always say it's better to do a few platforms well than to try and do them all and compromise on quality. And a way you can do this is or a way you can help yourself is actually on a new platform. You can niche down a bit. When you start a new platform, you haven't established yourself as an expert with your audience. They don't know you the way they know you on other platforms. So if you niche down on the new platform, begin to build a rapport with your audience, and then start to flesh that out, that's a tactic that can be used for new platforms. Get creative. Users are excited to be on this new platform, so they're excited to see this new style of content that you could bring them. It gives you an opportunity that you don't always have to try something new, obviously while maintaining your brand tone of voice and your styling. Learn and test. No one knows exactly how these things work when they first launch. Then yes, some marketing experts might speak to the CEO and get some tips, but the way their audience engage with their content might not be the same way that your audience engage with your content. So post different things out there. What can you learn about your audience? What can you test this time that we didn't do last time? And then finally, a super important thing to do with the new platform is setting goals. This is important for anything you do on social media and within your marketing. But this just really helps to keep you on track, make sure you're measuring your performance on the platform, and ultimately, are you getting an ROI from this platform, and is it worth it? So setting goals can be a bit tricky and they can't be plucked out of thin air. So you know, you need to have a good understanding of your audience, your platforms, and this is all a result of a social media strategy. So what we've done is we've actually created this template that kind of walks you through the steps of building a strong social media strategy and will help you set goals. So again, you can either scan this here to download it or get it when we send over. Okay, so I've spoken about goals and learning from your social media, like, but how do we know what's working and what does success look like on social media? So when you're setting goals, it's really, really important to identify, you know, how your social activity feeds into your business goals and your marketing activity. So what does success look like on social media relevant to your business goals? So let's say my business goal is more monthly blog readers. Well, then that translates into social media, into traffic. So we'll start measuring things like traffic referrals from social, profile visits. Let's say I've launched a new product and I'm going to need awareness. This translates into reach, impressions, follower growth. Those are the kind of things I know I need to track to make sure I'm on track with my business goal. So there's a metric for everything you want to achieve, and this helps you stay aligned with your business goals and stay on track. So now you've set your goals, through analysis, you can really understand more and more about your audience, and this can help inform business decisions. So let's say we are driving a huge amount of traffic from social media to a certain landing page that has a downloadable guide, but people are dropping off and they're not downloading the guide. Well, what can we learn? You know, is our call to action on the landing page not strong enough? Is the download button too far down the page and people aren't spending the time to get there? So social needs to be integrated into your marketing strategy, and we can really use it to learn about our audience. The next thing you can do is repurpose content. If something did well, post it again in a slightly different format. I see so many times businesses invest time in a really, really good blog, and then they post it once with one link, and that's it done. All of that effort for one social post. You know, if that performed well, if your audience like it, now have a video of your team member talking through the top tips from the blog. Next, separate those tips and make a carousel. Don't be afraid to repurpose your content. And remember that when you post online, your audience don't see every single post you post. So it will likely be reaching new people the next time as well. And
Ellie,
again,
sorry, just
yeah.
on this, just at this point, a question
Mhm,
came through 5, 10 minutes ago, and it might be quite nice just to bring it in at this point, if that's okay.
mhm,
It was just from Fergal Nolan, who's about to set up an executive search business, so specifically focused on kind of highly qualified, experienced candidates and that world. Obviously, we're looking at kind of a variety of tactics here that are a bit more outside the box, some of which are a bit provocative, some which is more playful. How can we take some of these learnings, and especially surrounding perhaps the tools, the tactics, AI, ways of content creation, to tailor that towards a customer base that might be a little bit more, dare I say it, like straight-laced, or
mhm,
knows what they expect, or if we don't want to go down a more let's say kind of provocative route,
mhm.
how can we take some of this and apply it in a more formal or corporate type environment?
Yeah, I think all of it is underpinned by, like you say, so understanding your audience. So if you have a social media strategy in place, you know, you can identify what is going to work with them and what is not. Using things like AI, you know, it doesn't have to be crazy imagery. We can do something that will speak to them, but really clearly, but just helps you stand out from being a bit different. Did you have any thoughts on that, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. It's interesting as well because Phil's also highlighted kind of producing potentially a lot of career advice content, which could be kind of time consuming as well. I think
Oh.
that from our experience, a lot of that mid of the funnel activity is where it's at. So people that are speculatively searching, speculatively engaging, looking for informational content. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Ellie, but from my perspective, it's about kind of interlinking it all. So if you are creating, so you mentioned there, if you produce a lot of career advice content, which could
Mm.
be quite time consuming, I guess there's an argument to have a single theme, a single piece of content, a pillar to kind of really hang your hat on and say, we've put together a 500-word blog, which is surrounding, how to make that shift. After you've been in a certain industry for 20 years, how to make that shift or something. You could repurpose that in multiple ways on different platforms, right? So you could
Hmm.
be having a link through on a Facebook page. You could be having a snippets from it, excerpts from it on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
maybe imagery from that article on Instagram. So I guess there's a way of interlinking things together so that it's a more efficient way of working.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we're seeing more and more AI tools that will help you repurpose with less time spent, because I completely agree. It can feel really time consuming to have one piece of long content and then make 5 different things for 5 different platforms. So yeah, definitely I'd recommend looking at those kind of AI tools that can help spread out your repurposing. Fab. So then the final thing I wanted to talk to you about was A/B testing, which is where you run a campaign, but only really change one thing within each ad to help you really understand your audience. And I just thought this was important to touch on because it's really effective on paid social media. Um, so this is an example we did with our client CVP. They're a leading broadcast and video solutions provider, and they were running a competition with 18 to 25-year-olds where they wanted people to submit their short films into this competition. So this is 2 ads we ran, and you can see we kept the description the same, the headlines the same, the call to action the same, but we tested the creative. So one was an image and one was a video. Um, and through then analyzing the results, so looking at the impressions, looking at the cost per result, we're able to find out what our audience was more engaged with. And this means that next time we are able to run an ad that really resonates with the audience. It really stands out because it's exactly the kind of thing that they want to see. It's a really optimized ad, and this can really help us cut through the noise. Another thing to consider when it comes to your paid ads is ensuring that you're reaching the right people with the right message and at the appropriate stage of the funnel. So you can use your targeting to tailor messaging. So let's say you've got an audience of 18 to 35-year-olds. One of your products or services might really resonate with the 18 to 25-year-olds, but actually, that the 30 to 35-year-olds are really interested in something else. So by separating them in your targeting, you can now incorporate that messaging into those ads and really speak directly to what it is that they're interested in. You can also meet people where they are in their customer journey. So this is a clothes ad, and you can see here it says, here's everything you've been loving, which means that the person served this ad was already engaged with the brand, which means the messaging has to be incredibly different than an ad that's reaching someone that's just heard about the brand for the first time. So your competitors might be running generic ads with their whole audience, but you can really stand out by tailoring each aspect of the ad to where people are in that funnel. And this is done through retargeting. So this is just an example in Meta, so that's Facebook and Instagram, where you can build a custom audience made up of people that have already engaged with your website. And even further, if they've clicked on specific pages or added a product to your wish list, you can push that really specific messaging to the appropriate people. And ultimately that is what's going to make you stand out, because people want to be heard, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're speaking right to them. Okay, so final takeaways then. Number one, consider surprising methods to capture your audience's attention. Whether that's aspirational, relatable, controversial, surprise your audience. Gamification, is an absolutely amazing tactic to be using. And user generated content, definitely incorporate that in your strategy. I would urge you all to think twice before jumping onto the next new platform. And then finally, ensure you are constantly testing and learning. Do we have any more questions?
Wow, well done, Ellie. That was awesome. I mean, that's you could talk about this stuff all day,
Oh
right? But
yeah.
in an hour, I think hopefully there's plenty of nuggets in there. Perhaps for some, there's some reinforcement if you're already doing. Perhaps for some, there are new thoughts, new ideas. So no, thank you for that. We've got a couple of minutes if anybody does have any final questions. Fergal has come through with one, but Fergal, I'm going to reach out to you on that separately because I totally understand their challenge, and we've seen it and faced it with clients, the clients that have come to us who have been having that issue, and it's all about strategy because we have to change it quite dramatically based on the whole change of policy. It changes everything in terms of ad targeting. So there are solutions, and especially on that kind of budget, it's more just how it's approached, you know. So yeah, we'll talk through all of that. That's absolutely fine. Charlotte, do you hashtag? Okay, so yeah, we got a couple of questions here, Ellie, just for the last couple of minutes. Hashtags on platforms still work well?
um, a lot less important than they used to be. And actually, I'd urge you to shift your focus a bit more towards using keywords, especially on the likes of Instagram and TikTok. We've seen a huge shift in people using these platforms as a search engine. So now your hashtags can help you. They can help categorize your videos so that the algorithm pushes it to the right people. They can help you reach the right people, but more of a focus on quality content and keywords.
Makes absolute sense. Which AI tools, and this may be one, we've got an AI kind of splinter team, I think I call them the splinter group, but they're sort of specialists across the team that are fully focused on AI. But unless you've got anything to add here, we can put this to the AI guys. But which AI tools would you recommend for repurposing content across platforms? You referenced that a bit earlier as well, Ellie.
Yeah. So there's this one I like which called repurpose.io, which specifically takes TikToks you post and saves it to your drive and removes the watermark, which then makes it easy for me to repurpose videos specifically across. But that is a specific one. We'll definitely speak to the AI team and get some more for you guys.
Sorry, I was just thinking maybe at the end of this we can just reference through a couple of things in terms of in the email we'll send a couple of pointers and things in certain directions of various tools. Thank you so much, informative and helpful. Great session. Thank you. Really useful. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks. They're brilliant. So lots of lovely, lovely comments coming through. So listen, thank you everybody. You'll be getting an email about our next event. We've got one coming up about Black Friday, I think, now at the start of October. Again, free to join. My colleague Laura, who's now our client services lead, who is an expert strategist, is going to be giving you hints, tips, thoughts, tactics on how you can approach Black Friday, whether you're a brand that works in retail or if you're a brand that wants to redefine Black Friday, is aware that it's going on, wants to look at how you could perhaps approach it differently or how it could be applied to your audience. So it really is all about the season and will be applicable to whatever business you are within whatever industry. But again, loads of lovely comments coming through. So thank you ever so much. It's been a great hour. Thanks to those who have joined, especially from other sides of the world and Dubai, as well as far-flung as Epping and Essex and the UK. So listen, it's been fab to see you all on there. All the very best. Shout if you need anything. You know where to find us. But otherwise, thank you again to Ellie.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Have a great rest of the day. Bye,
Cheers.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.